When anyone asks me what did I do, I tend to say I have many hats. That's usually the answer. I'm from Cuba originally, and I moved here 6 years ago. But I studied directing actually in Cuba. But life, reality, and practicality that's taken me into production. I love working with people, and you cannot make a movie or any type of content or any project, as I said, alone. To work in film, it's an everyday learning process. This is not COVID related, this is also part of the process and the creative process in the industry.
If someone asks you what do you do, what is your answer usually?
When anyone asks me what did I do, I tend to say I have many hats. That's usually the answer I give to almost everybody. Yeah.
And what are those hats?
Those hats, they vary. It depends on, especially since I'm in New York and I've been in the city for 6 years now, and I've been moving between the event management world and the film production world. So I've been doing film festivals and running film events in New York, but since way a long back. But also I've been working in film production, so sometimes I have to be on set or produce a movie or get a call sheet ready, or sometimes it's running logistics for an event and dealing with everything going on.
Wow. So how is your day to day right now?
The day to day, it's every day is really different. Every day is also very challenging. There are a lot of unexpected obstacles sometimes, so you need to be really creative and try to come up with the best solutions to address them, to keep moving forward with what we do, what we all do, especially right now, since especially in the arts and entertainment world, that we have been so affected because of the COVID situation in particular, and the financial crisis is already affecting everybody. So it could go from having a lot of Zoom meetings and phone calls, because now everybody is working from home. So all of those coffee meetings, we used to be in person, they're now online. So everybody has adapted somehow or transitioned somehow to virtuality. So, but that could be also running some of the partnerships we do and reaching out to the partners we have, the conference centers we have, and the filmmakers we work with, or writing grants or writing a proposal. So yeah, it's a really, the workload is really challenging and different every day, but it's really busy. We're really busy right now, and me personally, I'm really busy. So it's they tend to be full days of work. Sometimes, if we were just on set making a movie.
Right. Yeah. And how did you started in the production industry?
I studied film in Cuba. I'm from Cuba originally, and I moved here, as I said, 6 years ago. But I studied directing actually in Cuba. But life, reality, and practicality that's taken me into production. I love production, and that's what I've been doing most of my life. But it was a way to survive financially and staying afloat in Cuba, because as a freelance producer, I was able to have, again, many hats, and I was doing from a documentary to a reality TV show to a feature narrative to a short, or running a film festival. So I worked a lot with providing services for foreign companies and filmmakers that were going to Cuba. And that's how I diversified my roster and my workload, since I began to work when I graduated from the University of Arts in Havana I graduated 2008. Yeah, 2008. Yeah.
And when was that moment that you decided to move to New York or to the United States?
I mean, I moved to the US when I turned 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I keep saying this to everybody. I think that 30 to me was a really transitional year. I shifted completely and I left the country I was born, and I have fulfilled my career and life, and I moved to the US with a bag of dreams and hopes to start over again, a new life, with the hope that things were gonna go the same way they were or even better. And luckily enough, it has happened. I have to say I have to be really grateful for the opportunities and the access and the privilege I've had in order to do everything I've done since I'm here. But I moved to New York because of work. I moved here to coordinate the documentary fortnight, which is the documentary film festival at the Museum of Modern Art. And I was a freelance producer for a nonprofit that was bringing US filmmakers to Cuba and bringing Cuban filmmakers to the US. And I was a producer on the ground, pretty much managing all the events and the logistics of the nonprofit. And one of the events and the gigs I had was actually with Sally Berger, who was at the time the director and assistant curator in the Museum of Modern Art for the documentary fortnight. And when I was in Miami, when I first moved to the US, I was working in TV. I was producing a TV show. I was a segment producer in a local TV station in Miami. And I reached out to people I knew in New York and LA or across the US, and Sally offered me the job to move to New York and work with her in documentary fortnight.
Wow. And that was the moment that you start your own production company. I thought you start Bach Media, but how was that process, or why you decided to start your own company?
I have been always wishing to have my own company in Cuba since I was living in Cuba. It was not legal, and it is not completely legal yet, to have your own film company in Cuba. So it was like a dream that was not possible, being realistically speaking, in the island at that time. Things have changed a little bit in the past year, but still, it's not, the infrastructures are not created in order for independent film companies that exist already in the island to operate legally and without any liability. So when I first moved to Miami and I was working in TV, I respect TV a lot, but I didn't know if I would work in TV again full time. I learned a lot from running a TV show daily that's live. I'm running a segment, and it's a great experience, but it also brings you a lot of added stress that I do not necessarily want in my life right now. And I've been wanting to keep working with film and with Cuban cinema and to support the Cuban independent filmmakers like me who studied with me, and I know them, so that's why I founded Bach Media in Miami to begin to create opportunities for those independent Cuban filmmakers and to show their movies and present them in Miami and across the US. And the first event we did was in Miami at the Centro Cultural Español, the Spanish Cultural Center in Miami. And from then, I've been hooked. I mean, I'm always hooked with the island, of course, because I'm Cuban, but I've been hooked with the work by supporting the filmmakers and amplifying their work. And that's what I began to do also when I moved to New York. Although I was working at MoMA and I had a full-time job coordinating the festival, I began to reach out to nonprofit organizations in New York, cultural organizations, educational organizations, and film festivals that were working with Cuban independent cinema to also either program Cuban independent films, or to amplify the work they're also doing with their programming to reach out to those audiences. At the time, we were building a bridge between the US and Cuba through film.
So usually it's all involved from Cuba filmmakers and projects related with them, right? Like with your country and also that's why you started Latin Reel?
No, not necessarily. I began to work on Bach Media, as I said, to build that bridge and that connection that has always existed between the two countries, but especially with New York and Cuba and Miami and Cuba in particular, like it's two strong connections. I felt the need of content from Cuba and people to know and to learn to understand more about the country, because a lot of people do not necessarily know what's happening over there and what's happening with independent cinema in particular, which is I'm really interested in supporting. But also I wanted to empower and support those filmmakers to give them access to more resources, to networks and marketing opportunities that they do not necessarily pursue for many reasons. So it was a two-way type of work. And I've been doing that for, I moved to New York 2014, so it's gonna be 6 years. It's an ongoing baby for me and project, and I don't stop. And we have also 2 documentary films that are in development with 2 Cuban independent filmmakers that were also looking for funds, and already one of them has already begun production since last year. So I do want to also financially be able to support those films, filmmakers, not only by amplifying with marketing resources their work.
Wow. Could you tell me what is Latin Reel, when that started?
I mean, Latin Reel, it's a film series that addresses equity, diversity, and inclusion through film in New York City, and it's overall a platform to give and create opportunities to all of those filmmakers from Latin America and US Latinos that are producing, and they do not necessarily have the opportunities perhaps I sometimes believe they deserve, or they do get them, but they do get tokenized or weaponized by organizations and institutions because of other interests that mediate that. So when I moved to New York and the US, I had a big conflict personally, because although I've been having amazing opportunities and privilege, I kept finding myself in many of these great institutions that I was working, like almost the only Latino, the only Latinx, the only person of color in the room. And with the time moving on, and like I getting to know other people and creating more communities and network, I kept finding other people like me who were doing work also within those institutions and independently. So I felt the urge to find and create a platform, because the ones that have been created in New York for so long, like I think still that they do not represent absolutely everybody, and they're not as inclusive as they could be. And there is a lot of opportunity to create new platforms and like to diversify also those voices, catering to all the communities, as diverse as we all are, but without being segmented or segregated. Because New York is by itself a very segregated city, so we tend sometimes to replicate some of those systemic issues and problems and bring them into our own organizations and relations, and it's heartbreaking. So I felt the need to change that narrative, and not only to help me, but also to create opportunities to help other people and give them access to spaces that they do not necessarily have, bring them into the room, have them present, and also create a dialogue with US and older audiences that do not come across their content or what they produce, but also to give them resources, career development, resources, mentorship, financial opportunities to keep creating their work they do and keep generating an impact. And that's how Latin Reel began.
And right now, the model changed, or what are you doing different from the COVID and all this situation different from like 6 months ago?
I mean, reality is that because of COVID, all of the in-person events, which we do a lot because we have almost every month at least one screening throughout New York on all the boroughs with different partners. All of those events that were in person like have transitioned to virtuality, to the virtual world, and everybody is remotely at home consuming content or looking for it. So we have been able to partner with a lot more institutions actually to amplify the work they do and reaching out and merging their audiences with ours, and keep the work going. Although it's a really tough timing for absolutely everyone, especially the independent filmmakers, because everyone has been so affected, like in the arts and the entertainment world, because there's production is so not going, so many people are furloughed, and independent filmmakers usually have to hustle and freelance a lot. And like as I said, I have many hats. Like a lot of people have sometimes multiple jobs to get to the end of the month, and that's happening still. So I think it's more about finding that horizontal collaboration and those strategic partnerships that we have established, and that's the business model like we have implemented to keep moving forward together to support all of those films and filmmakers.
Are you producing others like film projects outside film, Latin Reel and all your companies, or are you focusing that?
I mean, Latin Reel demands 200% of my time right now. Like I do pretty much everything. Although like there are people like that come in and out depending on some needs we might have, and we have different contractors and consultants, and that's all great because you cannot do everything on your own, even if you have to run every department. There's no way. But although I've been focused on Latin Reel for the last year and a half, and before that I was working in production. I was working in a production company in Soho. I have kept developing, as I said, these Cuban films in the island with these filmmakers, and also I've been lately working and strategizing with US filmmakers, US Latino filmmakers with projects they have to jump in as creative producer as well, or story producer, or it depends. Every project is different right now.
Yeah.
But and I also began to curate a film section at Fuerza Fest, which is the queer arts festival for Hispanic Federation has, and I just began to do that last year as well. I am on the screening committee for 2 film festivals in New York. One of them is actually in New York, the other one is in Miami. New Fest in New York and Outshine in Miami. But I'm always like looking for projects. Like I cannot be quiet, so I cannot stop. So I'm always looking for something to keep me going and keep my mind energized and creative. Yeah.
What do you wish you had known when you started out? If I look to the beginning of your career and said, this is something that will help me a lot.
I mean, to work in film, it's an everyday learning process, like, or in media in general. Like, you don't stop learning. Like, technology keeps evolving and changing. The industry keeps evolving and changing. The landscape keeps evolving and changing, and you have to adapt and you have to learn. So this is not COVID related. Like, this is also part of the process and the creative process in the industry per se. I had the opportunity when I graduated to be able to work first as a PA and began to climb up the ladder from the very bottom after graduation at school, and to work with my peers and my colleagues at school, and then like begin to support people while I was learning like other skills. Like, there's one thing what you learn at school, and another thing what happens in reality. Also, because every medium is completely different. Like, it's not the same to work in TV or to produce different type of programs in TV or programming in TV or in film. So yeah, and a lot of people tend to really specialize themselves in one capacity or something very specific, I try not to. I mean, I love to have my hands in many places, and especially as a producer, like I love being a creative producer. Like I love to nurture and shape a project from the inception to the completion, and that's the completion, and that's part of what I thrive in too. It might be a long road. Like independent filmmaking is not necessarily an easy ride or the smooth ride, but it's I thrive in that and I love it.
That's so great. And why production? Why make films? Why be involved in production or help others to release their projects? That's something that move you to do every day this and not like working other things?
I love working with people, and you cannot make a movie or any type of content or any project, as I said, alone. Producers tend to need to manage like usually a team of people, even if it's really small, and you have to learn and to know what everybody is doing. You have to be a mediator sometimes, you have to be in between, you have to be a leader, you need to have a vision, you need to bring all of these different skills from all these different capacities into the project to end it happily most of the times, if you're able to follow through and end the project. And I thrive in that. Like I love communicating with people, I love being engaged with people. And connecting people as well, which is a part of the producing side of things that I love a lot, and it drives me. And I love also like helping people. I love supporting people and filmmakers with the projects. When I see something that I know that I had my hand on, and I see the reflection of that, it makes me happy. Like it makes me proud to see that I've helped someone to finish a movie, to get to a film festival, to acquire a distribution company, and that's it brightens my day.
What are you curious about right now? Are you reading something? Are you studying other things? Are you thinking to make another project, or what is?
I am learning a lot every day, but there's so much going on with the adaptability of the virtual landscaping and how the production side of things and how events run, how things are going. At the time, I keep building capacity with the series, and we try to keep things going smoothly. So it's, as I said, like I'm a sponge, like kind of a sponge. I'm absorbing like everything and learning also skills that I do not necessarily had implemented before. Especially with Latin Real, with the whole development side of things, so the fundraising and the philanthropic and nonprofit sector, which is not new to me, but there are interiorities and specifics that I was not necessarily involved all the time because I didn't have to. So that's also something I'm learning and I love, and I'm thriving into that. I actually just got today a book that I want to read from a Cuban friend who's a filmmaker. And between films, what he's doing right now is writing novels and books and publishing in newspapers and magazines. And he just launched for the first time his first novel on Amazon from Cuba. That's a huge achievement to be able to do. And the moment I saw it, I bought it online and I just got it today. And I'm looking forward to start reading it.
So is there anything that I should ask, but I didn't?
There is something we haven't talked about, and it's my film production side of the work in New York since the past 6 years. Just right before launching Latin Real, and right after I was working in event management, I worked for 2 years with Eugene Jarecki, who is a very well-known documentary filmmaker in the U.S., and I am a production manager and an associate producer on The King, a film that we premiered in Cannes Film Festival 3 years ago when Cannes opened their documentary competition. And also we had a special presentation at Sundance Film Festival the next year. And the film is on Amazon. It's available to watch, and it's a really powerful, striking story. I'm looking forward to watch the Emmys soon. We're nominated to 2 Emmys this year, so I'd love to. I don't know if we're gonna win, but just the nomination to me is the first time I work in a movie in the US, and it's actually getting 2 nominations to the Emmys. So to me, that's a huge accomplishment, and it has given me a great opportunity also to tap like into certain circles in the industry that sometimes is hard to get into. And yeah, it has been an amazing trip, an adventure.
And how you get to that movie? How you get that job and be involved with that people?
I was freelancing at that time, and one day one of Eugene's producers gave me a call because a person referred me to them because they were in post-production for a short they shot in Cuba, because Eugene came to Cuba to give a TED talk about U.S. and Cuba relations, and I was called to come to work with him for one afternoon on that short for the post-production part of it. That ended up being 11 days of work, and the short is now available on Amazon as well. It's part of the New Yorker, the Amazon Summer Series by the New Yorker magazine. And Eugene is part of one of the 6 filmmakers that was part of that year. And when we finished the short, after those 11 days of work, he asked me what I was doing and if I wanted to join him for the beginning of a new feature documentary that he was about to begin production. And I just didn't think it twice. And it has been an amazing experience to be able to do that. Yeah.
That's awesome. So thank you for your time and for this interview.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me over.